this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogman, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful.
Hi guys, how is everybody doing? Good, I hope. I'm doing well. Yes, if you caught last week's show for the video version of it, you caught that I did a tour of my chickens. Okay, my blind rooster, my 3 roosters in therapy. I kind of did in my chicks that I have that I still haven't let loose yet. So far everything is good. Nothing uneventful. I do have, and I showed it. I have my renegade chickens. There's always somebody that's sitting on eggs when they're not supposed to, but that's what you get when you have chickens. So anyway, if you want to see more on the chickens, I did keep my promise. Just go to my previous week's video version. You'll see it. Let's get on to the sponsor. The sponsor is Plan to Stay Safe. And what they do is they have a bunch of neat little gadgets, if that's what you want to call it. Basically, let's say you're traveling and you need an alarm. You want to hang it on your doorknob so it'll go off. Let's say you're in a hotel room. They got stuff like that. They've got smaller diversion safes. This is for the person. Maybe you have a rental, or you just need a place to maybe hide a little bit of cash or some jewelry. They've got these smaller type of diversion safes that you can just put away somewhere, and just to help you out there. They have hidden cameras. They have cameras that on your eyeglasses, if you want to do that. They even have stuff like necklaces, and they have a hidden camera. They have a pen, all that spy stuff nowadays. In other words, when it's a little bit obvious when you do, hey, I'm gonna film what you're doing. Well, if maybe you anticipate that you might find yourself in a scenario where you want to record somebody, check them out. PlanToStaySafe.com. PlanToStaySafe.com. They have a bunch of neat stuff there. And by the way, they also have a complete line of self-defense products for women. And I know men will use them, but I say women because I know men sometimes go, I don't need that. Okay, but anyway, a lot of neat stuff. Anyway, guys, let's get on to the good part. The good part is who I have as a guest tonight. This gentleman, this is his first time here on Stories of the Supernatural. His name is Cameron Logan. And he has the My Alien Life podcast. And basically what it does is it documents his experiences that he's been trying to explain most of his life. And on it, he talks about UFO, alien, and abduction experiences. And of course, what I think everybody wants to, that's has any interest whatsoever in ufology, is to uncover the truth. Since about 1970, Cam has had experiences that may sound familiar, may even revive memories some of you have kept secret or have ignored, or as an act of self-preservation have forgotten on purpose. He has done all of the above. This is a UFO story, an alien story, an abduction story, but mostly it is a story of survival and coping with fear and memories, and it is true. Cameron relives his experiences through his amazing guests, and their conversations draw upon incredible parallels. This show is about the person behind the experience. There is a reason so many people share extraordinary experiences, and Cameron tries to uncover that. Most of his life was very uneventful, and Cam grew up just like most of you. He had lots of friends, went to school, rode his bike, went to high school, college, got married, had kids, a fairly typical American life that was interjected with some terrifying moments that he is now talking about for the first time. Some of those moments he remembers like he was living them right now. Others he has tucked away and they show themselves in unusual ways. Join the experience with Cameron Logan and his podcast, My Alien Life. So, can't wait to speak to him. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, Cam?
Thanks for having me, Marlene. You look great. This is a fantastic show. I mean, you emailed me a while back, and I'm just
No, don't worry about that.
it's
I
it's
mean,
so cool. It's so cool to discover this because it's great.
oh, thank you. And
So
you know what?
just
It's. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to say that this is what it's about right here, you and me. It's not about
Sure.
Bob Lazar on CNN
Yes,
or
I know.
Jeremy Corbell. This is what we do, and this is what's real right here.
Sure.
Can you?
Absolutely.
I mean, you know the difference, right? Because we're not. I'm not getting paid. And
Exactly.
so I'm not out to make any money. I mean, this is fun and
Sure.
therapeutic. It's so many different things in it. What we do is for other people, not just numero
Exactly.
uno.
Because let's face
So
it, like you made a Lazar, okay, you know, you're a scientist working for a very undercover UFO, you know, of course, not surprising that very, you know, weird things happen to you or you realized, but like you said, that's not the common person that's out there
right,
that has
right,
had.
right.
And one of the things which I think is very interesting, I was a hypnotist for many, many years, and
Yeah, that's cool.
I spoke to a lot of people with recovered memories. I said sometimes people would come to me because they forgot where they hid the jewelry, believe it or not.
Right.
And you know, sometimes when you said that thing about memories popping back up,
Hmm.
people don't realize that two people could have the same experience. One will remember it, as terrifying as it is, and the other person, your brain will always find a way to shield you. In other words, to keep you sane, to
Yes.
make it short, and
Yes.
it will bury it. And a lot of people don't think, how can that be? All right. This has happened even to witnesses of traumatic events that sometimes they remember things years and they're like, yeah, why are you remembering it now? Your brain will try to keep you sane until it's ready
Right.
to remember. And by the way, some people are never ready. Some people go
Exactly.
to their grave
Exactly.
with these
Yeah.
hidden memories
Hmm.
that the brain says, you know what? If you ever recall this in like a PTSD moment, like full
Hmm.
throttle memory, you're going to lose it. You're going to crack up. So we'll just keep that put away. And then every once in a while, like you said, people will have either listen to a conversation like ours or description or something. And then sometimes they have a full blown memory. Other times they start having really vivid dreams, you know, like
Hmm.
symbolic, like weird stuff
Hmm.
that you're like, what is that? Which is your subconscious saying, okay. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. It's the everyday people out there that I think are the most interesting when they've had experiences or encounters, whether they remember an actual time or it's a memory.
And I think it's important to note too that even witnesses at a car accident,
Mm-hmm.
they may have two different recollections of
Yes.
what actually happened. So it's not unusual for people to forget it altogether. It's not unusual for two people to have totally different statements about an event. And it doesn't matter what it is. But the more traumatic it is, I think the more they could differ. However, that's why we get together, try to discover this, and maybe find
Sure.
common ground where we can bring that together and figure out the real story. You
Well,
know?
I mean, I'm sure you've heard, you know, you have people that, you know, they talk about alien encounters, you know,
Hmm.
encounters of the third kind. I'm not talking about a sighting. Some of them are like, oh, and, you know, and the alien, and, you know, came and saw me in my room. And then there's other people that are like, oh my God, you know, this is the most horrible thing. And then, you know, to them, it's a traumatizing event. And we're talking now where the truth lies. Is it the truth for one person and for the other? You know, but let me ask you, what happened to you, if
Can
you
I give you an
remember it?
example of this?
Sure.
Because this is interesting to me, because not only can events vary between people, one of
Mm-hmm.
the reasons is because, you'd think, two people are out in a field and they have this extraterrestrial event, whatever that may be. And it doesn't matter.
Right.
But the
Mm-hmm.
example would be that one person could remember things and the other one might not remember because they don't think it's important. Um, because
Oh, sure.
we have in our brain what we feel is an important event. We have levels of importance, and there's that too. It could be traumatic, but then again, it might not be important. So over the last many years, I've been writing a book, and I'm rewriting it now because I wanted it to. You'll find out why when it comes out. But
Okay.
here's the thing, and you're a prolific author. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
that. And I was looking at all your books earlier today, but it's really cool that people can remember different things. However, this is a thing that people always ask. Where's the proof? Did you bring back any evidence? Um, and that's like with me. No, I don't have any evidence, but there was one time that something happened, and I didn't feel that sort of there's some kind of a little bit of pseudo evidence. I didn't feel it was important. So um, I have these events in my life, and I call them sleep paralysis.
Okay.
Lately, I've been really stressed out. They've been common. Maybe in the last month and a half, I've had like four of them. So one in particular that I started to think about, which was must have been about 2017. I got injured. I had some surgery, and I couldn't do the things that I used to like to do, mountain bike and things like that, because I busted up my shoulder, and I was a little bit stressed out of that about that. And I had this sleep paralysis event, what I call sleep paralysis. But here's the difference. Here's the twist. There was evidence. So I'm in bed. Um, I wake up, and I feel like I'm awake. I'm in this field. It's very odd. Everything's gray with this bright light in front of me, and there's people out in this field, and it kind of goes down over to my right hand side down to a beach, so lots of tall grass, and there's people standing everywhere, and people are starting to rise up into the sky, and I'm taking notice of this, and I'm in bed as far as I'm concerned, but I'm also
Uh-huh.
in this field. I can feel myself in bed, but I could feel myself in this field. People are rising up, and I see them up in the sky above me, which is crazy. And the light is so bright. It's bright, bright light. I mean, bright white everywhere. And they're just rising up, but they're making little shadows, little dots. And at one point, I'm looking at this, and it's like there's a bunch of people right here kind of together rising up with people around the periphery, like making little dots. And it sort of reminded me of maybe a strange cat's paw that has
Right.
15 toes, instead of what, four or five toes, whatever the cats have, and then the dark center with all these little kind of toes around the edge. So I see this. I can't move. I feel I'm in my bed. I can feel it, but I'm looking somewhere else through the wall of the room. um, it just keeps getting more intense and more intense and more intense, and finally I can move. And get this. So when I finally move, everything goes away. There's my bedroom, there's the walls, there's everything else. And I
Okay.
was like, wow. So that was just a dream, that was sleep paralysis and a dream. So I got up to use the restroom in my house, and I walk in there, and it's kind of a longer bathroom with a white wall. You know how when a flash of a camera or whatever flashes in your eye, and you can see
Mm-hmm. Yes.
it etches it on your retina for a little while, and you can see it later. I can
Yes.
see it. I can see it. I can see that on the wall. I'm closing, opening my eyes. I can see that. It's etched in my retina.
Right.
Just like if I was outside and I saw this bright
Right.
light, it's there. And it was there for it was in the event itself, it was I don't really know how long it lasted, but it was so bright and so intense. And just like if you looked into the sun and you can see the sun as you walk around your neighborhood for 10 minutes later. I mean, this lasted, it was like 4:45 in the morning. I woke up like 6:30. I can still kind of see it after that,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I just didn't really think about that because it's so natural to see that if you're looking at something bright. And
Exactly.
so I was writing about it. I was like, that's evidence right there.
Sure.
That's different because later I experienced, an hour later or 2 hours later or whatever, I can still sort of see that pattern. It's still there.
Because if you start to think about it, it's like if this happened in sleep time, how could it etch itself
Right.
physically?
Right.
on my retina. It's just
Like
like,
if you
okay, how
saw,
did that cross over?
if you like saw a camera flash, or if you looked into the sun, or if you look into the sun on a beautiful horizon or whatever, that's sort of etched there, and you can see it for
What
minutes
feeling did you
afterward.
get when you were seeing this? Were you scared? Were you just
Um, no,
watching it?
I felt I was outside and it was warm. I felt it was a warm evening, and
Hmm.
but it with this intense bright light, and the bright light wasn't the sun, because the sun doesn't make this intense bright light. I couldn't see the sun, but you know what I was thinking, and at the moment, was if you read like the New Testament and talking about looking in the face of God, nobody can survive looking in the face of God. You would die, but you're going to see this light, this bright
Right.
light, and that's what I was thinking. So I was relaxed. I felt like it was okay. I felt like these people were going to some place nice, and I wasn't going to go there because I felt like I was in bed, but I was wondering why I was there. So that's unusual, and I guess my point of this is that there was proof there later. I mean, I could see this, as I got up, took a shower. I'm going outside. I'm walking through my house to go outside, and I could still see that little bit of pattern, if I really looked at it. But yeah, at 6 in the morning, it was
Well, see,
6:30
but
in the
see,
morning. It
and
was
this is the
bright.
thing that we get into. Sometimes the best, how can I say it, proof capture is our bodies, but we just can't
Right,
replicate it for somebody
right,
else to see. How could you, besides talking about it, there's no way that you could transfer what you saw and put it on film and say, look, this is what I saw.
right.
And then, of course, we get into all these things where some of these things, they get so caught up providing the proof because they got a million gadgets. And in reality, human beings, sane ones, if you've got a problem, you might not. But your normal everyday person, your body sometimes is the best instrument that you could use to basically, it's like a gauge. And if you're in your own skin, I'm sure you've heard of people feelings of being watched, or they're doing something,
Right.
they're hiking, and they're like, all of a sudden I get this feeling like I need to get out of there, that kind of deal.
Mhm.
That they're not, in other words, I'm not talking about somebody suffering from paranoia, that of course they're going to think something. People just doing everyday things that their body is, whether it's their subconscious mind picking up on something and feeding it to them, because their conscious mind is going boop. But that's our bodies are incredible as far as how much they capture when we're talking about proof. But then again, proof for you.
I can reproduce that. I've seen a UFO, and I digitally recreated that, even though I didn't have a chance to take a picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
And with my iPhone SE that was 8 years old, there's no way I could have taken a
But you know
picture
what?
anyway.
Let me ask you something,
Mhm.
Cam. Isn't it? And I tell everybody because I was doing paranormal investigations since the 1990s, long before they had. I tell everybody I was doing it when you had to develop film. All right, when you had
Right,
to pay to
right.
develop film.
Film's
Okay,
good. Yeah.
like sometimes, even if you could never replicate it or prove it, or you recognizing that experience that you had, that you went through your checklist of, I'm going to the bathroom and I'm still seeing this,
Right.
you're basically discounting all the plausible things. Sometimes there's something that happens when you realize it, that this experience, or in your case, this dream or this waking, there was something beyond,
Mhm. And
that I had a
I did
dream.
feel it was important at that time, and
Right.
I really didn't feel that it was important until I actually, I wrote it down, and but then later I'm looking at this and it's like, why didn't I? This is amazing, because you normally think of that as just a natural experience. You see some bright light and it's kind of there
Yes.
later, and but it was there and it didn't go away, and it
Let me
didn't
ask
go
you
away,
something.
and it was there.
What was going on? Was there anything going on in your life in those couple of days prior to the dream?
Well, yeah, I got injured and I knew I was going to have surgery. I was really stressed out. So that's what I've
Okay.
had sleep paralysis before, and it's usually when I'm waking up in the middle of the night, I'm not getting any sleep, and then all of a sudden, I've gone 3 or 4 days without any sleep, and I wake up. So just recently, and I had talked to people about this, and put a couple posts on Facebook about that.
Mm-hmm.
I several nights in the past month and a half, I wake up and there's a struggle at the foot of my bed to the left. And what the struggle is, to me, it sounds like people came in my room, they just start going at it. They're fighting. But in the sleep paralysis state, I am seeing polygons, two-dimensional, like gray shadows that are two-dimensional polygons, like overlapping, just shapes, random shapes, gray shapes overlapping, moving, kind of overlapping each other, maybe 3 or 4 of them. And then aware that there was noise, and I wake up and I can't move, and I'm looking at these things and like, what is it? And
how big
are they? And then they're gone. I would say, well, if you get that big, maybe
I'm not talking. Feet. We're not talking. We're like talking like
3 feet, 3 to 4 feet in diameter, and they're sort of round with jagged edges, and they're
and you're hearing something also.
Oh, absolutely. But I don't really know what it is. I can't really make it out. I can't understand.
That is so interesting. When you say struggle, is it like cloth chafing? Is it breathing?
Like I'm laying there, and all of a sudden I hear, like, let's say, like, boom, something falls on the floor.
Really?
Like maybe something like 4 shoes drop on the floor and make, you can hear shuffling, and you can hear kind of banging on the wall, and you can hear that. And,
oh my God.
And I wake up and I can see this just for 3 or 4 seconds. I can see these shapes until I'm able to pull myself free to whatever that reaction is that's normal, that you can actually move, because I can't move. I can move my head a little bit, and I can move my eyes, and I can look around, but I can't do much. And then suddenly I can. So that there was probably 3 or 4 of those. I don't remember, because they weren't that eventful. I mean, as soon as I was able to get up, I'd jump out of bed, and the room is normal. But it ended up being, before I was able to get my normal sleep back, another one where I was laying on that same grass that I talked about earlier, which, that event where I saw the people ascending into wherever, that was in 2017 in July. And then, a couple weeks ago, I'm laying there on my side and I'm sleeping and I can't move. I mean, this is, I can't move at all. Not much is happening, but I feel like I'm laying in that same grass and in that same place. So it was related to that, but I didn't see anything and I just couldn't move. And then I said to myself, this is sleep paralysis. And, and I get up and I move, because I'm expecting to see something. I can't move my head to see over to my right. I'm expecting something to be there, and I'm going to get up and go at it and see it face to face. Nothing's there, but I felt like there was something there. So, I've had those many events like that, not only in this house, but in other houses over the past a long time. A long time. I would say like 15 was the first time that happened to me. I'm 56 years old, so yeah.
So so let's see. But not exactly that. Things like that. Or has that struggle thing?
You can have podcasts as well as written events. Some stuff I put together that is in a book, but my first real face-to-face with an alien that I remember vividly was, at home. I woke up at 3:30-ish in the morning. All my pillows are stacked up underneath my back. I'm arched back like this, but I can see that way. And there it is right there. What woke me up is I felt this. Somebody just whacked me on the head. I heard it. Bam, I heard it. I felt it. I looked over first because I thought my little brother, I thought it was time to get up, and he came down and smacked me on the head, which he would do. And nobody's there. There's the door behind me is another room, and we have some tomato plants growing in there. It lit my room partially, but right there, this dude is standing there, and he's like, it's an alien. you know.
But
And
when you say an alien, what does it look like? Your prototypical gray or
tall gray, but with a slimmer head and smaller eyes, almond shaped
okay,
eyes,
not the
black
big.
eyes.
Okay,
And he's wearing something that I don't disclose because I want somebody to come up to me and say, "Hey, did your alien have this on?" Okay,
okay, I see what you're
and
saying.
somebody has. So
Oh,
not long after I told that story, somebody emailed me and it was like, "Cameron, did your alien have this on?" And that freaked me out like you cannot even imagine.
right,
That gave
okay.
me chills and it brought me back there. But he's there. I can tell I can't see his feet, but I can see that he's floating because here's the object, which is humanoid shape, is
Uh huh.
moving barely up and down, kind of like bobbing, and it's slowly turning, and he's facing that direction, and he's going to turn toward me eventually because he's turning so slowly. And I thought,
Oh my
when
gosh.
he faces me, I'm going to lose my mind, you know. And as he's turning, I could see his downturned mouth, which we see that now. Artists have made
Mm-hmm.
renditions of this, you know, just
Yeah.
for fun. But I saw that, you know, we didn't have that on TV back in
Right.
1980 or whatever it was. You know, that wasn't in the movies. I mean, we saw Close Encounters with the little gray dudes, and this
Right.
is this guy is kind of greenish gray, and his eyes are just black and turning toward me. And um, you know, I the proof, you know, I'm holding my bed sheets, sweating, and I can barely breathe. My heart is pounding. I can feel sweat running down, especially right here. And I'm just, I can feel my hands going into, you know, my mom probably had bought the cheapest sheets from Sears available at the time, and I could feel my hands almost going through them. And it was 3 something in the morning, and I watched this, and he's turning. I know he's turning slowly, and I watched this until the birds, I could hear them chirping outside. So what's that, like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning? So an
Okay.
hour and a half, 2.5 hours. I'm watching this, and
That long?
that long. I can't move.
Oh.
It's terrifying. I'm dying. I'm thinking, you know, I am. I play basketball. I play football. I'm in track, and my heart's going to explode. It hurts so bad, and I'm watching it and watching it and watching it, and then all of a sudden, you know, of course, I wake up. It's like 9:30, and it's their sun. A little window I had in the basement. It's coming in a little bit, and you know, I get up and I look at my sheets, and they're just wadded up where my hands were,
Uh
you
huh.
know, and you know, I still had the pillows under my back. How did the pillows get all stacked up underneath my back? So I'm arched back. It was terrifying, and I never wanted to go back down there again. So jump ahead however many years it is until maybe it was the last year. My buddy called me. My best friend purchased that house for my parents. My parents moved. I moved, and so you know I'm close to where my parents are now. But we moved about 3 hours away. But my best friend bought it, and I talked to him one night, and he said he called me, and his dog is in the background. He's got a Chihuahua. It was so annoying. He goes, you know what? I said, what? He goes, that dog goes to the top of the basement stairs every day and just barks and barks and barks down that stairs. It doesn't matter if we close the door. We got to get rid of the dog.
Uh huh. I don't know what it is about basements. I'm sorry.
Basements
Basements.
suck.
You know what? And the reason why I say this, I've spoken to so many people
Yes.
that
Yes.
their experiences, whatever, weird, yeah, it's at the basement is the source of it,
Yep.
or they've witnessed stuff. One time I spoke to this gentleman. We were at a park. As a matter of fact, I filmed him, but he was really nice. It was many years ago. Again, the thing when you see something that you're not really expecting. He
Right.
says he's in what was it, Queens, New York, and he says like a lot of people, you know, they had redone the basement, and it was like where you put the kids in, like go watch TV, go down there, and he same thing. He's a teenager, and he says him and his friends would be down there. They would hang out there and watch TV. And he says, you know, every once in a while we would see like the shadow of somebody, but we really didn't pay
Right.
attention to it. Like that, where's that shadow coming from? Kind of deal. You know, you never didn't follow the idea because I guess at that age, 14, 15, you don't. So he says one day he's down there with just one other friend. and he sees this guy walk across the room. He says, go into a hallway that he says, dead end. There was nothing there. There's no door. There's no nothing. So it was a guy that's dressed like with a 3-piece suit, like from the 40s, early 50s. Like, and he says, he looked at his friend, and his friend looked at him and goes, did you see that guy? Yeah. They walked over there. Of course, there's nobody there. They left. He says, like, a day later, he tells his mom something along the lines of, like, hey, you know what? I'm not going back there. You know, and I'm paraphrasing a lot. I'm speeding. Mom tells him that it turns out that that house was, I guess it was an older house, that once upon a time there was a trap door that they would open for coal to be brought into the basement. And one of the prior owner had fallen through it and died. Okay. And he was like, huh? He said, though, that after that event, that's it. He says, we never saw the shadows on the wall, nothing. And I never saw the guy again cross through the basement. And I mean, that's one of many, many stories that, or like what you just said, that dogs or animals are like, there's no way you're getting me down into the basement thing.
So Marlene, we had cats. We had this black cat. And, this cat just kind of showed up for us one day. And the cat, of course, wouldn't go down the basement. So I love this cat. Come on, let's go. Man, he would tear me apart. Wouldn't go down the basement. But get this, you'd like, where's the cat? You'd come to the house. Nobody could find the cat. The cat's gone. Did he run away? I go downstairs. He's in the basement. He's on the carpeted floor. He's just riveted, glued to it. He won't move. I can't hardly pull him off the carpet. That happened 4 or 5 times, And
how did he get down there?
Why did he go down there? Because I couldn't get him to go down there. And then when he's down there, he's crazy. So then the other thing is, going to high school with this wizard science program is great. And all this equipment. And we had rats, we had mice, and we had these rats, these Chinese hooded rats. They grow rather large and use them all kinds of science stuff. But we had those there in this male that we had, which was big. We kept the male separate, but but he still impregnated all the females because he would sneak out of his aquarium, go all the way across the room, and then one morning I had to go to school early. It was there like at 6:30. I saw him all the way across the room, running back, gets back to his own aquarium. But so we had all these rats. So I brought some home. I think I brought like 4 males or females. Doesn't even matter. But so I have him a nice aquarium. We used to have fish, and I set it up really nice. I mean, they didn't last for maybe less than 2 weeks. They died.
Really?
2 times that happened. 2 times.
That is so
and I'm sleeping down there, and I'm like, what is, I mean,
this was prior to your thing that you saw?
No, just a little ways after. I mean, this was
right after.
So the beginning of the alien was the beginning of beginning of high school, and then maybe when I was a sophomore, junior, something like that with the rats. I've written that down. I can't remember, and there's so much that's happened, but that happened. The other thing that's interesting is about the basement is the fact that, and everybody that's listening to my podcast knows this, and I've talked about this, half of the basement it's exactly split in half. Half of it's finished with the bedroom. The other half looks like an old basement with storage and concrete floor and everything, concrete walls. But you go through the door and take a right, and there's a concrete wall there, and there's an old door. I mean, a really old door, like a 1900 painted door with a painted doorknob. It's been painted 6 times. It's got paint peeling off it. And you open that door, and you think can't be anything behind that door because that's where the house ends. Well, the house goes a little bit further, and there's a porch on it, which was put on later, so you can open the door and look up and see the bottom of the entryway there. But it's just maybe 3 rock walls that go in about that deep, and then a rock wall there. And the rocks are like that high, and then it's dirt, kind of like a crawl space. But why this little thing of these rocks that, I live on a glacial plain, which, during the Ice Age, after the Ice Age, the glaciers ground all these rocks, and they're all kind of rounded out on the prairie and everything like that. There's nothing like these things. These are kind of oblong, shale, white, whatever. They're not even shale. I don't know what they are. They're all broken. Each one of them has broken edges on them. So they weren't out on this prairie. They weren't anywhere near, this whole glacial plain where I grew up. And they're whitish, and I've never seen a rock like
So let me
that.
ask you, where does this open up into under your front porch? Is
It
that when?
just so if you were to go in this, we called it a root cellar, and we grew potatoes, and we'd throw a bag of potatoes, and it would last there for a long time. But
Okay.
it basically is like a little room that's like two
Okay.
feet deep by 5.5 feet wide,
Right.
and
That's just barely
with
nothing.
these
Just
rocks, and the rocks aren't put in there really tight, like
yeah.
they're held together by gravity. There's no mortar or anything. So
Uh
then
huh.
right up here, you're looking, and then there's dirt, like the crawl space, which is about that much underneath the front porch, and
Okay, I
that's
get
all
it.
that's there. So it's this
And
weird
obviously there was a
door. It's a
door put
weird
there.
door, right, that goes nowhere. And the door itself, is way older than, they got it. Whoever
Mm-hmm.
put that door in there got it from some other house or whatever, some other dimension,
Let me ask you something.
whatever.
What? Just out of curiosity, what? How old was the house to begin with?
Well, I would say it was probably from the 30s or 40s,
Okay.
maybe late 30s. And so typically what they did in that area, they, somebody built a building and then moved it. But this one, and then put a bunch of houses together because it's in the middle of nowhere. But this house was
Mm-hmm.
actually built there. So the regular it's a nice foundation. The house is on the foundation, 2-story house, and then later on they put this front porch on there, which is a closed in porch and a bathroom. So front porch, bathroom. So which is the same dimension as the width of the house. But I looked, when I was a kid, I didn't want to open that door to go there to get potatoes. Go downstairs and get some potatoes,
It's
would be
like
what I said.
that.
I didn't want to go in there. We kept squash in there, and we had there was like a couple of shelves that we had put in there, and I didn't want to go down there. And I'd open this door. It was hard to open. The doorknob
Right.
was really hard to turn, whatever, and it smelled like earth and dirt.
Uh huh.
And um, what is it? I asked my parents, what is this? It's kind of a root cellar. Well, yeah, that could be it. That could be, but where do these rocks come from? Somebody
Exactly.
hauled these rocks in from somewhere else. They weren't rocks
Yeah. Like
like
why?
we
Like
have.
a specific purpose for that little room
Right, right,
that
right,
you
right,
just
right.
can't put your finger on. That how's like practical stuff.
You could go behind my house, which my house in this place where we live, behind the house is just open prairie. There's rocks all over the place. You could have brought 1,000 rocks in from right there. But these
Let me ask you,
rocks,
Cameron.
it's
Prior
weird.
to your side, this thing that you had when you were,
Mhm.
did anybody or did you ever hear of any UFO sightings in that area, lights or anything like that?
Um, well, prior to high school,
Well, yeah, around
we
that,
we we
that.
talked about it. We talked about it, and it's a pretty hot spot. My buddies and I think when we were 8 years oldish, we could sleep outside at night.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, you look up in the sky right now in the same place. There's satellites all over the place. You can't
Right,
go 30 seconds without seeing one. Then you'd see the satellite go over, and there might be one going this way, might be one coming this way. It was really
right.
cool back then. We knew what they were. However, and I've posted this on Facebook, which is a graphic representation of what I would see. We'd see, you know, um, what looked like a satellite coming over, which was instead of like a star, which is shiny and bright,
Mm-hmm.
this was more dull. It kind of looked like a dot, a gray dot. It would go and it would stop, and then it would go this way, make 45-degree turns or any number of turns, or there'd be another one. It would go up to that and stop, and then it would go back down or stop and get brighter and then go another direction. These things would stop. And I tell people all the time, and everybody's getting tired of me saying this, if you want to go see a UFO, you just come with me to north central Montana. We'll lay out under the stars, and it might not happen on the first night, but
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, I've seen it numerous times. It's totally legit, and there's no doubt in my mind. I haven't been camped out there in a long time, but I know
Yeah, that's
I
that's
would
that's the
see
thing,
it.
that when you live
I
in an
would
area
see
like
it.
that, after a while you see. In other words, compared to like living in an urban city where the lights, forget it. There's no way you're going to be able to really.
Right? Yeah. There's
I
no
mean,
light.
something has to be like really huge for you to say, "Wow, that's a light." But when you live outside of where there's that much light from a city,
Right.
that's when you can
You
really
miss it.
appreciate it. Yeah,
So they can
exactly.
in a city they can come right down and get you,
Yeah, I know. It's like
and you would
the
know it.
mothership just landed on your
Right.
front lawn, and you're like, "Hey."
In central Montana at night, we can see them coming from a mile away. But I think that's not unusual. And being that we're out there and we're kids and there's nothing else to see, and we're just laying out there till 4 in the morning talking about lights in the sky and stars and
Let me ask you something. You said you had a brother? Did any of your, I don't know if you have more than one sibling, or your parents, did they ever have any strange experiences?
so my little brother, 7 years younger than I am,
Uh huh.
he it's interesting because he used to just wake up screaming all the time, just be terrified. And
Okay.
my mom would go in, "What's the matter? They're coming," or whatever. And
Wow.
and so I remember, I think he was like 3 or 4, and he would tell me that these guys with these little gray guy, not gray, little guys with big black eyes would come and get him at night and take him outside, and they would leave him outside, and he would like all of a sudden find himself outside. Excuse me, and he'd have to get in the front door, you know, and
That's a weird thing for a kid to say.
especially at that age. So
Yeah.
we hadn't talked about it much. We've never talked about it much. He doesn't want to talk about it. He listens to my podcast, and we've agreed that he's going to talk about it. And
That
but
is that's a very unusual thing for a kid to say. You know that, right?
we're not there, and he just turned 50 in May, so we've never talked about it. But I knew it happened. He's scared to death, and scared of being scared, and didn't he
Well,
didn't.
yeah, right. If I don't talk about it, then I can convince myself it's. I
He didn't
imagined
want to
it.
stay in his second floor bedroom. I didn't want to stay in the
Really.
basement. We used to share that bedroom in the upstairs, and then I didn't even want to be in the house.
So what happened? You guys moved away. Did any of these things continue to happen once you moved away?
Well, not that, but later on when I was married, had my own house, some things happened, and I went to college, and definitely during college, nothing unusual happened. But in the house that I moved into and was married, had kids in, um, yeah, I woke up. There was three events. One was there was sort of sleep paralysis ish, and I woke up, and it was always I turned my head 2 times. I turned my head to the right. Um, One time there was a soldier standing there, and it looked like a real pixelated hologram. Wasn't quite 3 dimensional, pretty little bit 3 dimensional. It's hard to explain, but he's all pixelated, and it was like I was looking, and an image being projected by an old projector. But there was green, and it was a soldier, and he's looking at me, pleading, and he's
Really?
talking. I can't hear him. He does not make. There's no noise, but no speech. But I'm looking right at his face, and then he keeps looking down.
And what
And
is he?
he's
What time period are we talking about?
I was thinking late World War II, maybe Korean War. I
Okay.
don't know. It's
Okay.
I can't remember in detail, but just the coloring made me think of
Okay.
maybe Korean World War II. But he's looking down. He's holding his insides, his intestines. He's been blown open,
Oh.
and so I get up and walk through him, and he's gone. And then the other one, which was weird, was I look over and I see these sepia tone little families standing there, and they're looking. It's like I think they're waiting for a train, was my first thing. and
Mm-hmm.
it's like in the turn of the century, early 1900s,
Okay.
late 1900s. They're all grouped together. They're all wearing heavy clothing, wool looking, and it's kind of brown sepia tone. And they're talking, and they know I'm there. They can see me. It's like all
And
of a
are they
sudden,
life size?
no, they're about 75% life size.
Okay.
As where the soldier, I think he was maybe 85, 90% life size. He wasn't
Okay.
100%. But they're standing there, and it could be that they're further away from me. I don't know, but they can see me, and they're looking at each other, and they're surprised, like they're
Uh-huh.
talking about me. I can see that, and I was like, what is that, and so I watched it for a minute or two, and I jumped up and walked through them, and they're gone. But they can see me. I mean, I knew they could see me,
Wow.
absolutely could see me. And then the third thing, which really reminded me of Whitley Strieber Communion book. It
Uh-huh.
wasn't the same sighting, but it was sort of the same description. I'm in bed. Instead of looking over here, I'm looking straight there, and there's the doorway to the bedroom, which goes into the living room. And it's sun's starting to come up. It's getting bright in there. Um, Not bright, bright, brighter than dark. And I can see this like a square robot figure floating, pixelated, same sort of presentation of but more colorful. It's got this weird pointed hat on, and it's a square weird robot. You know, Remind me of one of my kids would read the Roly Poly Oly book. Reminded me of
I know
that a
what you're
little
talking
bit,
about.
and
Let me ask you, how did you, when you see this, how do you feel? I mean,
um, tired of that BS because I had so many experiences younger and just sick of it. Just that's why the other two I got up and walked through them. I was done, And just like now, if I suffer sleep paralysis, I see something, I'm out of bed as soon as I can. Oh, I didn't mention the one of one of the sleep paralysis events. I had a little pillow like this, and I
uh-huh.
just went like this. As soon as I was able to move, I just threw it at the objects and
Okay.
got up and ran through them, and nothing there, and just went to the bathroom, did my business, went back to bed. But yeah, I just feel like I'm sick of it, tired of it.
And does this
Um,
only happen at home, or have you ever been like traveling and you've had those
um,
experiences?
it's a good question. I'm sure it has when I've been traveling. Probably there's some weird stuff. Weird. It's staying at my grandparents' place, and which I've thought about and I've written about a little bit, but not in detail. That's one of the things I want to just kind of sit and think about someday. I don't really like to think about this stuff at all because it gets me. It gets me. There's a lot of emotion there, especially the alien that I saw. That was super scary. Didn't want to stay in the house anymore. Um, there was other things where, like one
Let me tell
night,
you something. I'm going to interject this. That 2.5 hour thing, to me, I'm thinking that had to have been like close to torture. That's the only word I
too
can
long,
think of.
too long. It
That's
was
like
so bad.
torture.
It was
That's
so
like
bad.
no
It's
wonder.
like,
I'm
why did this
surprised you didn't
happen?
like. Hey, I'm going to go sleep in the cars.
Yeah, I mean, I passed out apparently because I just woke up and it was 9:30. But I mean, I held in there for as long as I possibly could. I wasn't gonna close my eyes either because I didn't want to blink. I didn't want to like blink and have this thing like on top of me. I didn't know
Let
what
me
it
ask
was gonna
something.
do.
And I know this is obviously you were terrified, but what
Uh-huh.
do you think its intentions were? That it wanted you to see it, or that it was going to try to do something to you, or maybe that you were maybe you know how like it's almost like maybe it's been there before, but this is the first time I've for some reason I could actually see it.
Well, I've seen it. I saw it again. So that's
Right.
I saw it. Um, I've had some events where I was missing time. One time, I call it my first kegger. Went to a kegger when I was in high school. I didn't drink. I was sitting there, and um, all of a sudden, I'm watching people were doing everything, and all of a sudden, it's like later, 3 o'clock in the morning, and
Right.
we got to get the hell out of here. We're in trouble because I was supposed to be home hours ago, and it just like that.
Right.
It was a big lapse in time. missing time. I know that other people who were there, there was a car there, and it's like its headlights were like dimmer. I thought the battery had run down because it had
All
been
right.
sitting there so long, which it did. I'm sure it did. But so later on, yeah, my friends and I, we're driving and we experienced this all together. I've had two of them on my podcast. They don't remember it. I told them for the first time, even though I hinted at it, and they knew something weird had happened. I had a flat tire. We got to change the tire. Whoosh, we're in some different place. There's two small grays. There's this dude that I'd seen earlier in high school, the tall gray, and he's to my right. And that was two of four times that I've seen him. So he's
Let me ask something. Every time that you've experienced it, what's the feeling that you get? How does it?
Well,
and by this, I'm saying, because I asked specifically, not what you think. What do you feel?
First time was terror. Second time, when I saw him with my friends, we were standing there, and all of a sudden this feeling came over all of us at the same time. We were numb.
Okay.
We were numb. So I was numb. I didn't have any emotions. They didn't have any emotions. We all turned to each other and we looked at each other. They looked at me, but I didn't see any recognition of me. I knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going on. They had no idea, and they didn't know afterwards, and I knew I was going to remember it. So all of a sudden I'm this thing standing next to me, and from that point on I felt this thing is some stumbling, bumbling alien that's supposed to keep track of me or get information out, and he's not being able to do it. And I attribute that because I am got this weird mind. My mind is racing a million miles an hour. How I'm going to get out of this and get him, And when I was in bed that time, I don't think I had the thought. I don't think the thoughts I was having were expected by it, because it was expecting something totally different, and that's not what happened. And so it was frozen in my bedroom. It couldn't move. Every subsequent time I was with it, it was frozen. It couldn't move. And there was some sort of mission for it to do. They have some sort of mission. He couldn't do it. He couldn't pull it off. Whereas these two grays are getting information from my buddies. Like they're showing him my buddies' objects, sort of with some sort of three-dimensional holographic thing that I can't really see, but I know that they're showing him like a tube of toothpaste, a football, and I know they don't know. They can't. They're out in space, so I contend that they're space. They've always been space travels, born of space travelers. They pop down here once in a while to check us out, whatever. They don't have possessions. That's not even a concept. They look down and see us. We have all this stuff.
Yeah.
Computers. They don't even comprehend what that even means. So they're like, what? Toothpaste, football. They look down at us. We're herding cows. We're herding these large animals. I grew up in ranching area where there's all these cows. There's cattle mutilations where I live all the time. People live with it. They don't even pay attention to it. They don't even call the police or the sheriff anymore because it's part of life. So they look down. We have dominions over these large objects, these cattle. We're cutting their heads off. We're eating them. They can't even understand it. They don't understand what that is, can't even comprehend it. So to me, that's part of their, I hate this word, alien agenda, whatever. They're trying to figure this out because it is weird, and we couldn't figure out why they have nothing. They don't need anything. They don't even they don't even have the desire to own anything. And the fact that they're in some sort of a vehicle that travels through space in some way, shape, or form, their species just perpetuates itself because that's sort of the program. That's what I contend. And these guys may be different from other whatever that's out there. I'm sure there's more.
So you think there's more than one species?
Sure. But I don't think I've heard people say that there's hundreds of thousands. I've heard, well, maybe there is. The universe is so vast, but the ones that come in contact with us, there's a few.
Right, because
I
and I
doubt if
and
there's
sometimes
more than
you can
five.
attribute people's different experiences. Like, you ran into the ones that want to use you like a lab rat, and then
Right,
there are the other
right,
ones that they want to observe you, but they're kind of a little bit more. They kind of I understand about boundaries, kind of thing.
right. And I'm sure I felt that because of what my mind was doing, and this thing is picking up on it. I don't think it was scared, but it was unable to perform its duty because it was like, I'm I want to tear them apart. I'm thinking about, you know, because it's so, earlier it was so scary. And then the second time where I'm just numb, I mean, it's just like I'm in his presence, its presence, and it just can't even function because of hopefully PTSD because I still have it. So I hope he
Right.
does too. It does too,
Well,
whatever it is.
do you think that they understand human emotions the way?
No, 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 no way. Nope. No
Right.
way. So that's the other thing. So that's why they see these reactions, see what we do. I can honestly say that if they see us, we kill each other. Humans kill each other.
Right.
We drive these cars, and everybody has their own vehicle.
Right.
Or multiple vehicles, or all these things. It's just not even because obviously, you got to think about it. If you're traveling trillions of miles across space, or if your origin is right above Earth and you're always 16,000 miles above Earth, and that's where you became, and that's where you still are.
Right.
You're not gonna you can't have anything up there because it's ridiculous to have all these possessions. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work, and so after billions of years of evolution or whatever it is, and trying to perpetuate that type of species, you can't have
Do
it.
you think that some people theorize, especially some of the grays, that they're biomechanical? That's why sometimes they don't seem to be or understand emotion because we're talking and maybe some type of android or something with a biomechanical unit. What do you think?
Well, you could say, yeah, it is, but then you could say, well, it's just we're not used to that species. I mean, obviously, they don't have a ship where there's a garden and then there's little creatures running around that they harvest off the ceiling and they're eating those. It's going to be more simple than that. I mean, obviously, they could be part of this craft that they're in, and the craft could be part of them. They could be made out of the same material.
Sure.
They could, it all could be the same thing. It started out as real simple. Um, and, just by accident, like us, how we evolved, natural selection is just it's really accidental. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they could be much simpler than us. And, we could be part of their agenda for, any number of reasons. But, people think, well, are they going to invade us? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Well, they're not even on the same time
Right.
frame
Well,
we
because
are. It's
I've heard of the theory that basically they send them to do the grunt work. That the ones that are really in charge, maybe we hardly ever see them, if at all, and
and
they
it could,
sent all these grays and things to do all this the legwork.
but it would probably be simpler than that because if you live in space, it's got to be, it can't be as complex as we can't think of, well, they have this, this element 115 or whatever, and they got to
Mm-hmm.
have it because they're going to stick it in this thing, and there's
Right.
these gravity emitters and stuff like that. I don't think it's that complicated. There's a way of traveling through space and that time and space they could be stationary and time and space goes past them. So instead of them moving to get from here to there, space is flying along terribly fast, and they just stay
Mm-hmm.
in one place somehow, and they're there, right? So there's that. Nobody ever takes into consideration that if you're able to stand still in space, you can get from A to Z extremely fast because space is just flying by very, very fast.
So what would happen though? Let's say let's go with that. But then when you want to leave, I mean, is it a question of um because we're talking here inter or intradimensional travel that we obviously kind of don't really grasp yet. Instead of how we always think of travel in space like light years, that you say, oh,
right,
from this
right,
point to this point, it's X amount of light years, because we're talking linear in the sense of if we went from this point in a spaceship.
right. Keep in mind that there's 3 dimensions out there. I mean, there's not just here to here.
Right,
There's here to
exactly.
here. There's here to here. It's 3 dimensional. So the fact that you want to travel in a linear fashion is fine, but you're also talking about space and you're also talking about time. Being
Right.
that you did it once, if you were able to do it once, you wouldn't have to do it again because you could just change the time. You wouldn't have to change the space. You could
Okay.
change the space and get to a different time and then change the space or change the time. It's your choice. And
But
there
let me
might
tell you
be
something. That would be incredible technology if you had
and
control
there
like
might be
that.
something else, but it might be real simple too because
Oh, sure, of course,
they've
yeah.
already lived it. They've already done it. They've already lived it. So they could just wait to do it again, and maybe it's on a different timeline, but they'll change it a little bit. So, all these things are going on around them and they're just there, but they know it's coming, so we can do this. We can choose, um, we can branch off here, we can branch off there. We don't have to do it exactly the same. We can tweak it just a little bit. And if you knew how to do that, once it's already happened, it's going to happen again. Or it's going to, it happened 100 years ago. You could make it happen again just by being on that timeline. So time is relative. So even if it didn't happen previously, maybe it did happen.
Oh,
That's
right.
stupid.
From our
But
perspective.
it doesn't, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean, just because it didn't happen doesn't mean, or it could mean it did. I mean, when you're talking about time and space all at the same time or one of the other, I mean, the possibilities are endless. I mean, you just can't think about linear. I mean, we have that stuck in our mind. So,
Of
um,
course, right. And that's
this
why I'm
this is
saying
all
that.
deep in my skull, and it makes sense to me.
No, no,
So,
no. And you know what? Maybe once in the future, we'll look back and we'll go, it was so easy. It took us,
well,
whatever,
it's certainly not
whatever.
easy. Yeah, but it's amazing that we still struggle to come up with these old fashioned concepts of linear time and space. It's way more
Well,
than
you
that.
know
It's a
why?
3 dimensional
I'm
universe,
gonna go a
more
little
than
bit
that.
off road here on this. And because we sometimes we went to the moon, okay, then we stopped going to the moon all of a sudden,
Right.
and now here we're supposed to try going, but all of a sudden we're going to Mars. And I think most people, besides of course, movies, which is a lot of FX, this is how we always think of,
Right.
traveling that away. You know, Even when you see the Star Wars, yeah, you go from there, and yeah, you've got that thing that will shoot you through, but
You
I
have
think
these
that's why we have this
dimensional,
idea of how it's supposed to work.
right. And you talk about dimensions. How many dimensions are there? What
Well,
assistance would they provide? I mean, you don't, we could, I mean, there's a way, there's a way, there's a way. And we're not going to find it in our lifetime, but doesn't mean that somebody that accidentally evolved in extra dimensions doesn't have a way to do that already. And it's obviously part of that, but to what degree, we don't know.
Do you agree? All right, with that we have benefited. In other words, that we have traded. Oh, how's this? Have we traded technology? Well, not traded because they probably there's nothing we can offer them, or have we gotten something just because from UFO crashes? In other words,
No.
we've back engineered some stuff.
Nope. Because
Neither.
humans are extremely smart. One of the reasons that people don't,
I'm glad to hear
uh,
that. I'm no,
that they don't, well,
no. You know
smart.
what? I hate to say that, but the reason why I say that is sometimes I think we should get shortchanged. That we
We
think that
do,
all these
we do,
technological
we do.
advances are benefit of ETs,
people first of all don't realize how vast the earth is. They can't even, a billion people, they can't even comprehend how
Mm-hmm.
many that is. So 50 years ago, if we had half the population and we're working on technology, there's still 750,000 guys working on
Right.
10 million different things. And you know even if you put a bunch of monkeys, you know in
Right.
for a infinite number of years at typewriters, one of them will write the complete works of William Shakespeare by accident,
Right. Right.
just
Exactly.
and so that happens, and that does happen. But we've had people working in physics and chemistry and witchcraft and whatever. We've always been extremely
Mm-hmm.
interested in all of that, and there's billions of people have been working on it night and day, that with
Right.
effortless or not effortlessly, without some of these people are really smart, and some of these people have just expended every ounce of energy that they had in their lifetime to create one simple concept that somebody else picked up on later. I mean, it's always cumulative. Not only are they studying their own science, but they're learning from other scientists who also have contributed. So it's a pyramid of knowledge that has built our pyramids by humans.
Right. Okay. And I know what you're saying, where you're going with this, which is so many people say, we couldn't have, we couldn't have done it without somebody back then. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes I think of it, without the cranes and things that we see, how did they do this? How were
Right.
they able to
even
design
even
it
even
and
in the
build
book of
it?
Matthew in the Bible, Jesus notices that there's people, why do you have these people, doing all this work for you and carrying all these massive loads, and mentions
Right.
that. He's right in the center of humanity, of our planet at the time. So and even our great Greek, um, Aristotle and Plato and whoever. I mean, they've written
Right.
some amazing things that they've seen people do, and we just don't even. Well, yeah. So they saw that, but obviously it was some ancient technology with this huge laser that's cutting these stones. No, I mean that's guys with rocks and chisels and I mean it took them a long time just to
Oh, yeah.
develop some sort of tool to that's metal to bust through rock. Prior to that, it was rock on rock. It was wood on rock. It was wood to wood. It was,
Well,
we've evolved.
I
We're
think,
smart.
and I'm sure since you're into running, back in 1954 when Bannister did that 4 minute mile, which up to then was
Right.
supposedly impossible.
Nobody would beat him. Nobody would break that.
Right. Until
Right.
once he did it, then other
Right.
people came
Right.
along. In other
Yeah.
words, that the
It
how
can
can I
be
say,
done.
the stumbling block was on the mind. In other words,
Right. Right. And that's how simple is running. I mean, anybody can run.
right,
You and I can run. We can aspire to run a 4 minute mile or a sub 350, whatever. But
but
people
and I
really.
think, I'm not sure, but I think I heard that doctors, like physicians, that said it's impossible for the human
Right.
person, man, or
Right.
whatever, to do that. Like, and everybody's buying into it. Like, okay, well, I guess I
Right.
can't until somebody actually
Yeah.
did it. And I guess I'm going down the road of the technology, that once somebody does something and you're like, okay, and then they just, all they need is that little push or that idea, and then they run with it. I,
And the training regiment back then was totally different. They probably, I'm going to go run a 4 minute mile, then I'm going to have drink a 12 pack, or I'm going to smoke,
yeah,
afterwards.
exactly.
I mean, once they eliminated that, and
Hmm.
diet alone. I mean, look what diet has done for athletes, and
Sure.
there's and now there's electronic devices that they can you can change your breathing and become a much stronger athlete than you were previously. Just
Let me
there's
tell you something. I was doing research on a story, and they had, it showed a picture of Babe Ruth golfing in a hotel down in Miami. And this, remember, Babe Ruth is Babe Ruth.
right. And he
And you take that picture and you put him next to not even just a regular baseball player nowadays,
right
and it'd be
right
like this Babe Ruth guy, this is him. This is the
Right.
best. As far as the physique, how to differentiate what you were describing as far as, and I know that there's athletes that do take certain
Sure.
drugs, but let's take that out of the equation.
Hmm.
It's incredible, like you said, what the difference has done between, what was it, maybe a 50-year space of time, as far as athletes and physical development and things like that.
But
Uh,
I think I don't know if it's Stephen Colbert or whoever would say, I want a steroid baseball and football league. Can you imagine? And that's
right.
drugs. I mean, that's drugs,
Yes, I know that.
and you can do enhanced training techniques, which don't include drugs. But still, I mean, there's another thing that you could do that pushes us even further, and we become different. Now, obviously, you know, people look a lot different than they did in the 1800s.
Sure.
I think we're taller, we're whatever. It doesn't matter how different we are, but we are different. So that's a glint in time. Geologically speaking, that's
Oh,
nothing.
yes. It's
When
nothing.
it comes to the size of our universe and how big it is and how long it's been here, that's nothing. I mean, what does a million years look like? We're going to be vastly different.
Of
I don't
course.
want to see
Of
it.
course.
I don't want to see it.
Oh, so I guess what, you don't think we're heading down the road? Physical. What do you think we're going to be? Just what do you see those all a big brain with little skinny body because we
I don't
don't
know.
do anything?
Well, that's another thing. We can enhance our body electronically. Um,
Yes.
that's just you know and since 1995 or whatever, and things that have happened since then, it looks vastly different. um, you know we'll achieve that, and probably in our lifetime. It's
Well,
15
if
years, it's going to be crazy. We're going to we don't even pay attention to technology hardly anymore because it's just so
of
fast and there's
course
so much,
it is.
and all of a sudden here's a scientist in wherever, and it's just he came up with this scary thing. Well, there's 100,000 more scientists probably have something scarier, and
I
it's
tell you something.
astounding. We're living in a crazy time.
Everybody's heard about Dolly the sheep, that she was cloned, and there was just like a one-off. And the other day, I'm reading an article where now, if you have the money, of course,
Right.
50K for a dog and 35K for a cat, you can get your pet cloned. And I was like,
Right.
I thought that you weren't allowed to do this. And
Yeah.
no, and of course with CRISPR and all this gene editing, because I was thinking, Marlene, you're thinking about maybe 1960s when they said the big head with a skinny body. I think it's what, between the CRISPR, either you're perfect or you're part, robotics. If by any chance you still have something wrong with you, because I sometimes, like you said, I think there's a lot of labs doing experiments with the human genome, supposedly for perfecting, that nobody's aware of, or would not be allowed in a lot of countries. And it makes you wonder again. Was this all by ourselves that we came up with this technology? Did we have help, or where's it going to? I mean, I personally don't. I don't think we should tweak our genomes, and I'm not too thrilled with the how can I say, the robotics part of it, where I'm gonna fall back on that trope from Star Trek with Picard and the Borg. Where
Right. Yeah.
all of a sudden your humanity is basically is not a good thing.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that it's one of the controversial things, like COVID vaccine, whatever. I mean, my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, we've been vaccinating people, and we've been, you know, you think about the first smallpox vaccine, and that was like, it seems like the dark ages. I mean,
Yes.
if you walked in and they said to you, well, we're going to vaccinate you for cowpox, but first, what we do is we take a little cowpox from this person over here who's kind of resistant, just scrape his skin, put it on a needle, and jab you like 4 times. I mean, that's what basically smallpox looked like back then, and in the beginning. And so, it people would go nuts, and we I don't even want to get into the whole vaccine thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just amazed that we tried and did something, and obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously. In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
it's working out a little bit, but not as much as I would have hoped, and it's definitely changed the way we're going to do science in the future, or do
Of course.
that in the future. Because I mean, we do it overnight almost. Well, we have been able to. We just weren't allowed to to distribute it. Really, I mean, we've been able to do a lot of things that we can't just do out in the open, and allow doctors to take part in. We're not to that part, medical, scientific ethics, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think that a lot of it has to do, like I tell everybody, you know what? I think a lot of people, if they're hesitant, is because, you've always thought of any type of medical treatment that goes through a long series. As a matter of fact,
Right,
sometimes they say it's overdone
right, right,
before they're brought to the public. I tell everybody, not too long ago, my doctor says, "Have you had your tetanus?" And I said, you know what? I haven't. And I have a big property with a lot of junk that I
right,
said, give it to me, because I understand it's better to have my tetanus shot up to date. I didn't think twice about it. I'm not hesitant about something like this. But I think a lot of people, because of what's been happening, they're very like, wait a minute, like you said, this came through too quick. Why wasn't this studied further? Just in
right,
case,
right,
people, and I understand, and I think that a lot of, and I think, to be honest with you, and I tell everybody, human beings are creatures of habit, and despite us sometimes wanting to be adventurous, when things move along too quick for us, we're like, huh?
right.
Then, we're like, whoa,
Well,
whoa, 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 whoa.
so here we were. We have COVID, and they're like, we need to come up with something now. And then when we do, it's like, oh,
Yes,
wait a minute. But you
exactly,
you mentioned
exactly.
tetanus, and this is funny. I've mentioned this before, but I do my own mechanics on my vehicles.
Uh huh.
I built a house. I'm still working on that. I do all kinds of stuff. I'm getting tore up all the time. I do my own plumbing. So um, I've probably had stitches 5-ish times, and I've gotten a tetanus shot each time. So when I was in high school, this is something I kind of started to do. So it was about 1 year ago, I sliced right through there, and I had to go get some stitches.
Oh,
So she goes, the lady at the nurse who was stitching me up, she goes, well, when was the last time you had a tetanus shot? I said, I had no idea, but I knew you were going to ask me that. She goes, well, we'll give you one. I said, how long have you been a nurse? And she's like, 25 years. I said, how many cases of tetanus have you ever seen in
I know
your
you're right.
lifetime? And I ask that every time. So I probably asked that 3 times. So let's say I did it over a period of 30 years, and none of these people have ever seen
That you know
tetanus.
what, but
Lockjaw.
that lockjaw thing, it's like,
Right.
oh crap, man, that's
Nobody's
horrible.
seen it. And so I just casually said,
No, to me
what are you
it's
trying to
always
put in my, what are you trying to put in my arm there now? But it's
no,
funny.
no,
But
no. You know what? I probably hadn't had one like maybe in 6, 7 years, 8. To be honest with you, the only time I've ever had it is because I've done something stupid, and then years go by. And as a matter of fact, I was out here and I stepped on a nail and it went like right. It almost went into my foot, but it went through
right.
the bottom of my, and that's why. And it had happened recently before, and it was like, you know what? Last thing I need, is something like this. Let me just be on the safe. But I'm saying most people are middle of the road. I want to say, as far as being cautious, but not being closed minded. How's that?
Right. Right.
And
I
I
mean,
think that's where everybody's at.
anybody that's my age or older has had lots of vaccinations, and I've had my
Hmm.
share. But the tetanus shot hurts. Um, um, what's the shot? The, the variation of not chicken pox, but the other one,
There's
um,
there's one.
shingles.
Oh my! I
So
haven't had that, and I'm not gonna have that. Sorry,
so
I'll pass.
so about right when COVID started, I got my shingles shot, and then they didn't have a tetanus shot yet, so they needed to give you 2 shingle shots. Shingles was painful, so much so that I haven't gotten the second one. They're
You're
like,
like,
you could still get, and I will. They're like, you could
ah.
still get the second one, and I said, I'll be back. It's got to be like on a Wednesday night, at the pharmacy when there's nothing going on for the next 4 days, because that one sucked. I
Yeah.
used to think that tetanus hurt, and I had had
Hmm.
several, but that shingles, um, get out. get your shingle shot, because my wife had them and I know other people had them, and it's not fun to get.
I know, but you know what? Then I think back and it's like, man, I don't ever remember. And I want to do what you just told me about the tetanus. I think back, I remember seeing, and I go, man, I can't ever remember knowing anybody had shingles. You know, it's one of those things.
No,
like,
I have.
do I know of anybody that had this?
Yeah.
And it was like, no, usually, I don't.
I knew. So one of my old employees that I heard she had to leave her job. I haven't seen her in maybe like 10 years, but I heard she got shingles really bad and it spread to her foot. And she wears cowboy boots a lot, and it turned into something bad.
Oh.
And she didn't even realize it. She, her foot itched, whatever, and it went nuts. And so I don't even know anything about shingles, and I don't even want to.
No,
I'll probably get
to me it's like I did what you did with the tetanus. And it was like, I think I'll pass on that. Thanks.
Right.
No,
I don't. It doesn't.
But you know what? I think the majority of people, Cam, are really middle of the road. I think a lot of people are like, they're open minded, but I don't blame them. You're thinking, I gotta see really what happens. Like, do you grow a head, come out of your shoulder, or is it, 10 years from now, is everybody still okay?
When I was 18, it took 33 years to get a vaccine for whatever, and 100 million people died. But the example I always use is, and I've looked at it, and there's this guy that's on YouTube, and I think he's still around, the last American in the iron lung, and talking about polio. And like when my parents were kids, or not kids, but later on, there was like polio season, like you couldn't go to a movie theater when there was a polio, or couldn't go to the swimming pools and movie theaters. So they were locked down like every summer for 4 months, or they, depending on where you are in the United States. Typically, I think it was in an area that was warmer, that was more humid, that, didn't have freezing temperatures like they do in Montana. And people were, and it was a horror story. People were getting locked in these iron lungs, and there's 50 iron lungs in this building, and it was just these people in rows. And that is so dystopian, post-apocalyptic, whatever, that and people lived it. And the only reason that people aren't rushing out to get a vaccine or whatever is because they didn't live through that period. Even the I remember going to the Civic Center in my town. Mm-hmm. It's just packed with people. There's people lined up out the door getting a sugar cube with the polio vaccine, and or whatever it was, and then measles and rubella, whatever.
Yeah, measles.
There was always
rubella,
that
MMR. Yeah.
Right. So, we would go to school. You had to have that, and I'm just, I don't care what people do. I'm just not afraid of vaccines. I just had COVID, just got over it.
You know what? I think I had it myself at some point real early, and looking back on it, because generally I'm a healthy person, and then we got over it, and it's been one of those things that, believe it or not, and I really laugh sometimes because you see the emphasis there is on washing your hands, and it's like, I've been doing this all my life. What are you talking about? Like, hello. Of course it makes sense to like wash your hands with soap, and not just like at the beginning, at the end of the day, like depending on what you're doing, of course, it's like, and by this I'm not talking about, I'm not one of these OCD people that's like, I gotta wash my hands for every 30 seconds, but yeah, no.
Yeah, first I my hands were just raw, and then that ended, and I kept washing it. And
did you?
I made it.
Tell me the truth. Did you hoard toilet paper?
Yeah, of course.
I'm just kidding.
Of course. But
I'm just kidding, because I swear that's the one thing that if I think back on all of this, it was like, what?
But I did it smarter, because not all toilet paper is created equal. The thick stuff, it may be as long as my house, but the really thin government like stuff that's like 3,200 ply, that stuff I didn't have a lot of money, 10 years ago, and I'd buy that toilet paper roll, and it would last. I would never have to change it. It didn't matter if it got down to that big. That was a month and a half worth. on one roll because it's like 1,600 ply.
Yeah.
So everybody's buying the plush soft
All
stuff.
right.
I was
Yes.
buying that government
Right.
micro thin,
It's like I know that's at some point eventually, if not already, people will look back. You know how you look at certain things in history or certain
right.
events, and this has got to stand out as like one of
But
those funny
it
things.
wasn't only that, it was ramen. I mean, you still, my grocery
Yes,
store here doesn't have any ramen. And
really.
the ramen that they do have is a brand that you've never seen before.
You're
It's
kidding.
no, and there's no ramen there. So one of
That's
my
so.
one of my stores locally, this happened at a couple of them that I found out later, but they ran out of meat. So we have a lot of tourists here, so
Uh huh.
everybody's buying meat right now and they're camping. But yeah, there's a supply chain issue for not only that but other things,
Yeah.
and there's stuff that we don't even think about that people just really care about, like Robitussin cough syrup. Go try to
Yes.
find some tonight.
You know what?
And
And it's
and
exactly
it's
what you mean. Until you need it, in other words, and until it's something that you need or want, or maybe normally that you
right,
realize, man, there's a shortage of this.
and it's not whatever Robitussin cough syrup. It's like Tom's or Jim's,
Right, right, right.
and then
Yeah.
it's thin like water. It's not like what we were using pre-COVID. It's
Yeah, no,
totally watered
it's
down, whatever. Nobody's complaining about that. Well, I'm not going to use that, because
oh, sometimes at
it's
some point, you're just like, I'm glad I got something like this, because
right, right,
and you know what? I tell everybody, since I was born and raised in Miami and I grew up in a hurricane prone area and I lived through Andrew and I know what it's like when there's no electricity, when your stores, especially in an impacted area, are closed. If, they're the talk about bare shelves. I know what that's
right.
like. And you think a week is not really that long, but us wimps, myself included, that are used to having on demand everything, especially electricity, uh, you realize, man, being a little bit prepared, it goes a long way.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
It
does.
really
Especially
does.
water and like I had to help my mom with some plumbing a couple of weeks ago, and I was
Hmm.
like, first thing I did was run upstairs. I got to wash my hands. Well, there's no water. I was like, I can't wait to
Yeah.
wash my hands. So I go into the ice tray and I'm melting ice. I was like,
Yes.
I could have waited to wash my hands, but it's all perspective. It changes every day. Um, be prepared and help
Yeah.
out somebody else.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
just think about you, you
Yeah,
know.
of course. We one time, uh, I just bought a house and what was it? It was Katrina, which eventually, when it came into Miami, it was a one, and eventually it left, and of course, and it went into New Orleans, and I remember the house next door was a rental, and it was a single mom with two kids, and the landlord basically told her, "Hey, there's plywood out in the back. You want to, you put it up." And it was one of these older Florida homes that had those big, large, jalousied windows, like the front of the house. That was a style of that was built there, and my sons and everything, we helped her put up these things on the window, because that's what you do to help somebody out. So I know exactly where you're coming from. Like,
Yeah.
why not help somebody that obviously is like stranded? Just because even if you were a man by yourself, there were pieces of wood that you needed two people to hold one end and then the other to put it into the window and hold it there. So yeah, I know exactly what you're
I
talking
was
about.
I was in New Orleans the year that they won the Super Bowl after Katrina, and I don't remember, it was a couple years after Katrina,
Hmm.
and they were no way. I was surprised that they were having the Super Bowl because I mean or they were ready for the Super Bowl because I didn't think
Right.
that town wasn't anywhere near what it had been prior to that, and it was bleak. I mean, you
Yeah.
walked off Bourbon Street one block, and there was people with blue tarp roofs, and
Yeah.
they did for years. I mean, go to Google Maps right now and look at the satellite view. There's still blue tarps all over,
Yeah. Yeah. People
New
people don't
Orleans.
realize I was living in Homestead when Andrew came through in '92 in South Florida, Miami, and well, they call South Dade County.
Right,
And I mean, everybody's seen the pictures because, of course, in the immediate, everybody was running publications. But people don't realize that for a long time, because there's only so many roofers, there's only so many builders. So what do you do so that you don't get rained on? You have to put, for years, exactly like what you described. That happens sometimes because there's only so much work
Right.
that whoever's out there can do. People, once the news fades from the headlines, it's the people that are there that, so what you're describing, I totally understand. And then, unfortunately, in some areas, they've kind of fallen to disrepair because people just up and leave,
Everybody, yeah, and then everybody goes down there to get jobs, and when you didn't have enough roofers, people became roofers.
Oh, sure. Of course.
So,
Of
that's
course.
part of who we are, and maybe they're not the best, but right now you don't get the best.
Oh, no, no. People, it's that's what I'm saying. Everything, your reality shifts. Your reality shifts as far as what your expectations are when you're really in need versus, well, I think I'll get us some references and let me look you up. Let me give me an
Right.
estimate and I'll get back to you. One of those deals. But you know what? When you said, I want to real quick go back to, you said that you grew up in an area where there was a lot of cattle mutilations.
Mm-hmm.
These ranchers, did they understand that it wasn't a predator? Or did they think it was a predator? What
Oh,
was
absolutely. They knew it wasn't. I
it
mean, they
wasn't?
would go. They all have heavy equipment, so they would go get a
Mm-hmm.
front end loader, and they had a low spot on their property where they would dump it over the edge, and there it would stay and decay and get eaten by coyotes and
Well,
whatever.
that was going to be my other question because I've heard in some instances where some of these mutilated carcasses, predators will stay away from them. It's almost like normally, this thing would be gone in 2 days.
Mhm.
And in some cases, I've heard that they, like you said, they, like where it is, or they dump it somewhere. It's not like, or it doesn't get buried and it just
I think the,
desiccates.
the the predators. I mean, that I don't think that's the case, but the predators they change a little bit. I mean, if you have a
Mm-hmm.
predator that just ate, there's three cattle laying in a ditch somewhere, and they fed on that for a week.
Okay.
They're not going to come back. I mean, they're not a um, predators, and as well as deer, antelope, elk, things like that. They're browsers. They go here, 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 here. They don't just stay in the same place. I mean, as far as how they've evolved and have survived for millennia, whatever, how long, that's because they're always on the move. So they would probably not avoid it on purpose, but just avoid it because that's part of their genetic makeup. But um, I remember there's a couple. So within about 6 to 7 miles of where I lived, I mean, as kids, we'd walk out on the prairie and there was these spots. We knew there was always dead cows there.
Mm-hmm.
When I was really younger, like 7, 8 years old, my brother, we'd go out there and we'd look down there and look at these dead cows. We didn't know why they were there or what.
Okay.
We just figured they died somewhere, and which they did, but it's common, you know. Um, and nobody, I remember when it was big on the news at school, when I was in grade school, later grade school and high school, we talk about it, and I'd ask the farm kids all about it. We'd talk about it all the time, and they're all friends of mine. Still, I have, friends who experience that, know about it, and it's just the way it is,
It
the way it
become
was.
after a
Yep.
while.
What do you
And
do? I mean, it is that.
right, we get, and I guess being a rancher, I've never been a rancher. Like I maybe think, okay, I know I might lose X amount of heads to predator, regular, normal, everyday predators.
Right.
Okay, but I guess in somewhere it became like you said, what's the use? Who am I gonna? I'm gonna call the sheriff, and he's gonna look at it and
Well,
go,
initially, of course, they did, and it was
yeah,
reported, well, that, this Mr. Clark experienced this, but then what? You know, you don't call up your county extension agent in the morning and say, you know what, I had aliens last night. I lost 2 cows, and I've had enough. We got to stop this today.
and what are they gonna do?
It, Nothing. So it's just like anything else, we had, when they reintroduced wolves in Montana, the ranchers, we lost, 4 sheep to wolves. They're still losing them. there's nothing they can do about it, except now they have a wolf hunting season. I guess we could
Really,
like
they've gotten their
like
numbers have gone up so much that they actually have.
there's I could go see a wolf tonight probably if I wanted to. So
So have you seen
especially
any
down
cryptids out there? Let's just go there. Have you
no
seen any? No.
no cryptids no. You know,
And mind you, I'm not
when
specifying
I in
any.
college I drank a little bit. I saw something, but I'm not even talking about that. But
But why?
yeah,
What do
I
you
don't.
think it was?
No, I don't know. I don't that I don't know. I know a lot of people are into it, and I've done my share of interviews on that, and um, like anything else, that my stupid question is, well, where's the evidence? Well, where's the evidence of anything?
Of
So
course,
here I am talking
of
about
course.
evidence, and then I'm asking. I'm a hypocrite, but
Well,
I don't know.
sometimes the best you can get is a ton of eyewitness
Yeah,
reports of
yeah,
you know the one time I interviewed a gentleman who's passed away since. He had a called the Alabama Bigfoot Society. He had established this in the 1970s, and he told me the story. He says, Marlene, you know what? Got to the point where people would see something like on the road, they're driving, they call the police. The police would be, we can't do anything. They would bring him to my house, and he says,
right,
and these people would tell me stories about seeing something. He goes, whether I don't know what they saw, but they believed that what they saw was, in other words, it wasn't like a normal stuff. They were scared enough.
right.
He says a couple of times they even told him, sir, can we stay here until daybreak because we don't want to drive home. He goes, I don't know what they saw, whether it was real or a mistake. He says, but I had enough people come here and tell me, be totally, that they were not lying, they were not making this up. They really believed that they had seen something that didn't quite fit into the normal stuff that you could think of, that you would see crossing a road in the backwoods of Alabama kind of deal, you know? So, again, whether it's real or a mistaken whatever.
Well, just this, my last story. Let me just tell you this. I was
Okay.
2 weeks ago. I was at the doctor, and this is funny because
Okay.
I don't even remember how we started talking. Now, in addition to podcasting, what I podcast about, I had
Mm-hmm.
another one, entertainment related one. I know what it was. So we live in an area kind of has some celebs, whatever, and I said, yeah, I interviewed somebody, whatever. And I said, "Oh," he goes, "What?" And I said, "Oh, I have a I do a couple podcasts. I did one for a while, entertainment, so related to that, and I do another one. It's UFO related, da 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 da." And he goes, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." So he was interested about it, and he goes, "You know, my son works for whatever lumber company, and he goes up to Crane Mountain, and at the end of Crane Mountain Road, they saw there. That's one of the hottest Bigfoot spots. I mean, this is 7 miles from me, and I'm like, it
Mm-hmm.
is. I said I had no idea, so I looked it up, and yeah, there's a Bigfoot sighting website, and it has some
Okay.
accounts from up there. So that was interesting. So I'm gonna look into that.
Well, it's one of those things where, I say, well, okay, when you discount the people that are lying, when you discount the people that are mistaken, when you discount the people that are either mental illness, drugs, or alcohol, we take that out. You still get a lot of people describing stuff that it's like, could they all be wrong? Could they all be mistaken? Could they all be lying? Could they all
I
be
have
like
a
delusional?
I have a
But
cousin who basically grew up with my older brother. Didn't live with us after I was born, but he was a big elk hunter, and he had an elk camp that they would go back. And he said one night, like 2 in the morning, they can hear this guy screaming. He comes running in, and he's like soaking wet. And it's
mm-hmm,
like 0 outside, cold, and he ran from his camp because he was chased out by a Bigfoot, which this area is known for. And he ran and he ran and ran. He crossed a river in the middle of the night in pitch black
okay,
darkness. Had no idea the guy could see a little bit of light from their camp, and ran for miles. And they drove him back to his truck, which was over there, his camp, and drove a long ways. And he had been running a long ways, soaking wet in the dark.
again.
That's the
You
only
know,
reason I would do that is if I saw that, I would do that too.
be like, no shame in that.
I,
It's
I'm
like
not.
I'm gone.
I'm not. I don't have that much pride where I'm going to say I'm not
You mean
doing.
you're not
I'm gone. I'm done. I'm
you're
done
not
in the
gonna do
woods
any of that bark thing? You know, that tree
for
knocking
no
thing.
forever. Forever. I'm done in the woods. I'm not going back. I'm living in
That
town.
be the end of your camping, hiking slash
Yes.
whatever.
No more camping. No more hiking. I'm living in my small, quiet town where nothing happens.
Yeah,
So
I'm
there you
telling
go.
you. That's why there's a lot of people that sometimes, oh, I wish I could have a close encounter with dot 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 until they have one, and then it'd be like it's over. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
moving to the middle of a really busy city. Cameron, it has been absolutely wonderful to talk to you.
It's a
Okay,
blast.
it has been
I was looking
great.
forward to this. Thank you
Do
for.
you do you, for my I'm gonna have a link to your show on the credits of this show, but what's for my podcast listeners? What's your website or whatever?
Don't listen to me. Listen to Marlene. This is
No, don't
this
do
is a
that.
this is a good show.
No, no, no,
This was
no.
good. No,
Let me tell you something. One of these days, you got to come back, and I'm going to tell you some of the people that called me for hypnosis that had stuff,
yeah,
weird stuff, cryptid related to that. When I heard it, I was like, at the beginning, as years go by, you hear things, and at the beginning, you're like, oh, okay. But then when you have other people, and then you're like, God. But yeah, really, really
I
weird
want to talk
stuff.
about I want to ask you questions about what you heard here on this show because I like looking. I love your introduction. I love
Oh, thank you,
this. It's all cool. So
thank you.
I do have a website. It's www.myalienlifepodcast.com. I was also the host of Inside the Guest Studio, which I've added those really cool interviews to my alien life because I didn't want to pay to have them somewhere else anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not free, and so that's my website. You can find whatever you want on there.
Okay,
I'm adding to it all the time, and
sure.
I'm sort of on a bit of sabbatical right now because, as I told you, I'm building a house and I have a lot going on right now. And
Are you?
it's
Are
been
you? Are you?
it's
You
been
said you wrote a book. You said.
yeah, I have to do that too. I mean, I'm just trying to cram that in. It's been
I
so
was gonna say, do you have any
it's
upcoming projects? But that house building
it's
part, you
yeah.
know what?
I'm
Everybody I've ever
behind.
spoken to that either built a house or remodel a house, they walk away from the experience saying never again.
Right, right. I
You
mean,
know?
here winter lasted until about May 1, and then it rained until um, a week ago constantly. So I'm trying to find the energy
Let me
to
ask you: Are you
grow. It's
close to
like
Yellowstone?
we're well, I'm in the north west part of Montana, but Yellowstone's down central south. So yeah, it's 3 hours, I guess.
Oh
three
no,
hours
no. The
for me.
reason I was asking is that I heard that like Montana, that or the Yellowstone area, it was like they had to close the park down. It was like what?
Oh, water. Yeah, we had flooding here too. Yeah, it rained. It rained everywhere. It doesn't rain like that, in Montana. I mean,
Okay,
Montana. I was joking, showing yesterday, like central Montana had like 15% humidity, whereas like the East Coast had like 81%, and it
yeah.
was both sunny days. I mean, it's so dry here you can't even imagine. But for some reason, we would get even when it's pouring down rain, it's only 80% humidity here, which
Wow,
is it's just weird here. It's dry. It's an anomaly.
that's
It's
interesting. That
paranormal.
that
Yeah.
that. Let me tell you, I was in Montana. I went to Yellowstone. Was it summer of '84? And I remember it was June, and you still had snowdrifts going into like alongside the road
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
Yellowstone, and that was June.
There's still the Glacier Park where I'm at now. There's still like 13 feet of snow up there, and they're not going to
Yeah.
open the road, which is the major thoroughfare through the park for the 4th of July. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
People
look
don't.
you look right out my window here, and the mountains are all white
That's
tops.
incredible. People don't realize like how. What do you guys have? Oh, like 2 months of summer, I guess, if that much.
It depends. Last year it was 100 degrees for 2 months here. It's terrible. So bad. So bad.
Wow.
So
Was that your
who
little
knows what we'll
dog,
get?
or what was that?
I don't know. I didn't hear it. It must have been on your end. It's
No.
silent here. Really? Oh, I
No.
could have. I hit my little $20 microphone.
I'm not kidding. And when I replay this, it sounded like a little dog barking. I
All right.
swear. And I know
The,
because I have mine, but mine are way out
the
in the porch
spirit of
outside.
somebody's dog is in my house. That could be what's going on.
I we When I get it, I'm gonna see. I'll splice it. And I'm gonna send it to you. And I'm
Okay, I want to
looking
hear
at
it.
it. It was at one point about
Let's
1.42, something like that.
give
But
me the clip, and I'll put it in GarageBand. I'm gonna analyze that,
okay,
and
okay.
yeah, yeah,
No, it came in through
play it
it came in through my
backwards.
headset, so I know it didn't. It wasn't from the exterior. So
Okay,
anyway,
go here.
Cameron,
All right,
you're being haunted by a chihuahua.
that could happen.
That could happen, right? Take care.
Yeah. You
Bye
take
bye.
care. Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Wow, guys, this has been great to talk to him, isn't it? You know what? I had one show like 3 or 4 years ago where we got me and Mike Gress. He was Christopher George. He was at the very end of the interview, very clearly a meow, like meow meow, like a cat meowing, and we both assumed it was each the other one. It was your cat, my cat, and then I'm thinking, of course, I didn't have cats. And later on, I spoke to him. I said, by the way, and he goes, I don't have any cats. Now, what's really funny is earlier in the interview, he mentioned something about his mom and her cat. I kid you not. But it's one of those things that the conversation it speeds along, and then at the very end, very clearly, you hear a cat meowing in the background. Well, not the background. You see it come in through the conversation. So that's why when I said this, is like, well, now I'm going to the dogs. But anyway, guys, it has been fantastic to speak to Cam. And of course, I'm going to put a link, and I urge you to go to his podcast, My Alien Life, and he's on YouTube and everything, because you could tell he's got a very open mind, and obviously he's had a lot of experiences. Let me tell you something, that 2.5 hour thing, that's torture. Because, you hear about people having, sometimes seeing things maybe seconds, maybe even a minute, or even when they have recovered memories, it's a memory. How's that? But to actually witness something for that length of time, that's incredible. Thank God he was a young guy when he saw that, because I could see that happening to somebody older who'd just die on the spot. Like it would be too much. I can't handle this. That's like, let me torture you. And then it makes me wonder when I ask him, because he's describing where maybe this thing is with him, monitoring him, whatever. That it makes you wonder, had this thing always been around, but for some reason that one particular day he was able to actually see it? Maybe it was there all the time, and maybe the force field, I don't know, this is me making stuff up. The force field went down, the cloaking device went down, or something shifted in his brain. Something that happened maybe when he goes into sleep paralysis. God knows. And when normally he could not see, he was able to see. And it wasn't that thing was there 2.5 hours. It's like, yeah, I'm here all the time. It's just that you're being able to see me. And and I forgot to mention it to him. There was a lot of people. Well, not people that like hypnotists, whether they're doctors, that practice hypnosis, that delve into the area of spiritual attachments, have described where under hypnosis, a client will describe that they have an attachment, but it's not a spirit or what you would think of. Their attachment is an ET. And in some cases, this ET is there for what they call observation. They're monitoring the person, but they're part of their etheric body. All right. This is why when he said that thing was next to him, I was like, man, this sounds very familiar to some of the literature that I've read about, of people, hypnotists going in and doing work with somebody, spiritual attachment, and they think, is it a dead person, or in some cases something non-human? Come to find out, the non-human is like not even, it's an extraterrestrial, and they've attached. And it's the process as far as that is monitoring this human being. And a lot of this, believe it or not, dates back to the 1980s, 1990s, where there's a process where people deep under hypnosis, you could scan your body, and they will, by the way, it's like seeing, but of course your eyes are closed. and where basically you could see things in your body. Sometimes at first they'll describe it as a certain color or something that it doesn't have shape. And then when they look closer at it, and I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody that said, you know what, I have this really bad pain in my knee, whatever, Doctors have looked at, I've never had a knee injury to explain it. I've gone to my doctor, and the best they can do is like, there's nothing wrong. I mean, I can give you pain relievers, but there's nothing there for me to treat as far as this is your diagnosis. But they still have some type of pain or whatever. And then they've gone through this and they've seen an attachment to that knee. Sometimes they've discovered, believe it or not, dead relatives. Let's say one that you had a bad knee. The point being that they start that attachment, and I'm giving you the condensed version, the Evelyn Wood speed reading course on this description, where basically you manifest the physical symptoms that this person had when they were alive. All right. And that's a whole different thing. It could be in other parts of the body. It could be in the throat. It could be this. It could be in the head. Sometimes some people will see it as inanimate objects, and sometimes animate but different objects. And then my point being, let me get beyond this. In some cases, when they've done this, and they're of course somebody that's trained to do it, what they've discovered is an ET attachment. So that's again, that's what I was thinking when he said that, and I forgot to ask him, and I have a feeling that his answer would be yes, based on what he said. But a lot of people think that paranormal, as in ghosts and things like that, of that nature, if you want to call it the paranormal, and the UFO ET things, is like those two paths never shall cross. Like, no, ufology's here and paranormal's here, and let's not, like, in other words, you'll have people that will believe UFO/ET but forget about the ghost stuff, whatever. But I'm going to retell something I heard earlier today, which I thought made a lot of sense. And this was the Travers, that he, I don't know if any of you are familiar with, Skinwalker Ranch. Of course, a lot of people have heard about Skinwalker Ranch, out in Utah and things like that. And now they've, I think it's the History Channel. The History Channel has a new show. Well, I want to say it's going into its third season. And again, they're trying to do what the prior owners did, which was basically observe with cameras and conduct experiments at the same time, trying to either capture anomalies or see what the source is, or in some cases give an explanation. Why is this happening? And there's a lead, basically, and I have to give it to them. The people that are on there are really top notch. I consider how can I say it? What I like about it is that they try to look at everything first as how can I say it? From a scientific perspective. Let's find a scientific explanation for this. Okay. Now, the lead one in this latest thing is Dr. Travis Taylor, and he's I want to say he's an astrophysicist. This guy is, and I remember seeing the beginning when it came out that he was hardcore. This is strictly a scientific approach. And today I listened to a snippet. I think it was George Knapp that was interviewing him. And George Knapp is asking him about unusual experiences he's had besides what's been filmed. And he's saying how one time they had, and I remember this part of the show, but obviously this happened off the show, where they had brought in a rabbi to the ranch. And the rabbi basically had found an area where he thinks there was a portal. And they redid it. Then later on he says, where this rabbi approached him and says, they told me that they're going to come and see you tonight. And he, of course, says, and who's they? And he goes, well, whoever is here. Okay. So he says he's describing, or that night he goes to sleep and he says, I guess he sleeps on a trailer on the ranch, and he says, my doors are locked, my out in my room, and he says that he's sleeping, and very similar to what Cam is describing, he has what he thinks is a dream. To him, it's a dream. Okay, but very realistic, where the door of his room slides open, because remember, there's a trailer, a mobile home, and this very old-looking Native American man comes in, shakes his head at him, and then puts his finger to his cheek. Okay. End of story. He gets up the next morning, or I don't know how soon after, goes to the bathroom, and he's like ready to splash. I think, as a matter of fact, no, I take that back. I don't think it was the next morning. It was like, you wake up and like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Wow. That was a head, splashes water on his face. All of a sudden he looks and he's got a mark on his cheek where this, whatever it was, Native American touched him. And by the way, and he describes in it where he had it for days afterwards. He says, and he goes, it wasn't something like where, and of course, of all places, your face. And the reason why I say this is, I think it happens to anybody. Sometimes you get a bruise, and in some part of your body, like your leg or your arm, then you look and you see the bruise, and then sometimes you don't even remember how you got it, or you'll remember, oh man, yeah, a couple of days I hit myself. But when it's something on your face that you normally see a lot, whether it's the mirror, you are aware of something appearing on your face that wasn't there before. His point being, this wasn't like a bug bite or something where he slapped it away. And yeah, I knew that I had an insect bite. All right. And again, if anybody's familiar with the show, you realize that he's kind of a pretty much science-based, let me measure it, capture it, whatever, even if he can't explain it, but at least it's like, and of course, like what we were discussing with Cam, this was not some type of proof that you can replicate it, or that you can even capture it and say, look, this is what I saw through my eyes and my mind, whatever you want to call it. And also that you could say, okay, was it suggestibility? That he had a rabbi come and tell him they're going to come to you tonight, and whoever's there, the next thing you know, but he had that mark there. You could say, okay, he was primed. He was primed. This holy man from the Jewish religion who's there says, the portal and everything at this place and this part of the ranch. And he's like, yeah, scientists or not. And he primed you good. And of course you had this dream, which a lot of the history of Skinwalker Ranch is tied to the Native Americans of that area. So of course you had this really, but that part of that you still have the mark on your skin, it's almost like you want to say that it's almost like, I'm going to give you proof, as in him, Travis Taylor. I'm going to give you proof because you're such a scientist, that there are things that here that you can't measure, or that are not part of your science world or your science reality. Because I know that when you wake up, if I don't do this to you, you're going to think it was a great, wow, out there dream, but that's the extent of it, kind of deal. Yeah, when I heard that story, I was like, wow, that's incredible. So yeah, I think that in some cases, maybe more than we don't really understand, there is an overlap of UFO/ET, paranormal, even cryptids, because you always hear of an uptick in cryptid sightings, along with UFO sightings. And of course, some people keep track of this. But yeah, in some cases, they're each separate, and other times, in some weird way, they overlap. How? I think at the moment, not many people understand that. Anyway, guys, I hope you like the show. Please come back every week. I have a lot of great guests. Again, sign up for my newsletter on Substack. Okay. Go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com. I have links to everything. I have links to the videos. I have links to the podcast. All my podcasts besides this one. The one on Supernatural Story Time for Scary Stories, Nightshade Diaries, Classic Adventure Ghost Stories. Of course, I have Eerie.News. Eerie.News, I'm up to about every 3 to 4 days. I give you a video and a podcast version, and I just go through some of the headlines, weird stuff, unusual stuff, things like that. And I'll read it off to you. And you know what? And the reason why, besides my own personal interest, is like that why be normal thing. It's like, you know what? A lot of the headlines nowadays are they're kind of depressing, for lack of a better word. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let's go off into this other version of what's still going on in our world, because believe it or not, despite all the crazy stuff that's going on, and by this I do not mean to diminish the importance of a lot of things going on, but it's almost like we forget that there's other parts of our world, of our lives, of our existence, whatever it might be, that still are going on. They don't stop. You know what's that saying, time stops for no man? Well, same thing. And sometimes it's like, let me take off this crazy, worrisome existence of worrying about things, like he was saying, shortages, all that stuff, to, okay, you know what, there's other things going on in this world, okay, that sometimes fall under the radar, that are still going on, okay, because like and Cam was right, our existence really is, a blip is too much, it's a mini micro blip in the timeline, but it is our reality. It is our reality. So anyway, that's why I do Erie.news, so that people can listen to stuff and go, wow, that's really unusual. Like, that really? Yeah, you're kidding. That kind of deal. So again, guys, don't forget, come back every week. I have a lot of fantastic guests coming on. I know you're going to like them. New ones like Cam, and then other ones that are coming back for round 2. Till then, take care.